There are few guarantees in fantasy football, but a backup running back turning into a league winner by season's end is as close to a sure thing as it gets. Last year, players like Zamir White, Devin Singletary, and even Ezekiel Elliott went from being backup running backs to fantasy contributors that help teams win championships. So who's going to be the handcuff running backs to do it this year? If you can't wait to start drafting fantasy football teams, you don't have to. Underdog Fantasy has drafts with entry fees as low as $4 and prize pools up to $15 million. And of course, their flagship Best Ball Mania 5, where someone will win over $1 million. Plus, if you sign up and use promo code ENDGAME, you'll get a special pick that you can use to potentially win 325 times your entry. And you're going to get up to $250 in bonus cash. Don't wait. Go join Underdog Fantasy now and use promo code ENDGAME to get your special pick and cash. Let's start with the rookie out in Arizona, that is Trey Benson. Now, this running back rookie class this year didn't get a lot of hype for obvious reasons. Not the strongest class we've seen in years, but there are still some talented running backs in here, and Trey Benson, one of the most talented running backs. He's got the size, he's got the speed, he's got pass catching. He can truly be a three-down workhorse in the NFL. Of course, he went to Arizona, who already has James Conner. Here's the thing with James Conner. A, he's getting up there in age, and B, he's missed games almost every year of his career. There's a good chance James Conner misses some time, and if he does, Trey Benson is ready to step into a three-down role because behind him is really just Michael Carter, who's more like a change of pace, scat type of back. But the other thing I really like about Trey Benson is I truly believe he is the future running back for the Arizona Cardinals. I think he will be the RB1 in Arizona next year, but I think this year we see him begin to carve out a role, and it wouldn't surprise me if after the bye week, Trey Benson and James Conner are in more of a 50-50 split. So he's one of the few running backs on this list that I think will actually have value, even if James Conner stays healthy. And if James Conner was to go down and miss some games, Trey Benson can absolutely be a three-down back in a great offense, in a great system. Trey Benson, for me, a must-have handcuff running back. Now, it seems a little strange to call Tyjae Spears a handcuff running back. I mean, technically, he was the handcuff to Derrick Henry last year, even though he was heavily involved in the passing game. And now he's being drafted kind of like the handcuff to Tony Pollard because Tony Pollard often gets drafted much sooner than Tyjae Spears. But I think these guys should actually be drafted more similarly. Tyjae Spears was very good last year. Yes, he didn't get a lot of work on the ground because, again, Derrick Henry. But when he did, he was actually good. He was 6th in yards per touch last year, 23rd in evaded tackles, and 6th in breakaway run rate. And I talked about that receiving work. He was 9th in both targets and receptions last year, so we know he's got that pass catching ability. Now, I do think Tony Pollard will technically be the 1A here, but I think this is going to be much more of a 1A, 1B than a Tony Pollard with Tyjae Spears as a change of pace back. And if something should happen to Tony Pollard, I truly believe Tyjae Spears can be the every down running back for the Tennessee Titans. Now, this offense may not be as exciting and as good for fantasy as the Arizona offense, but it'll be good enough, and this is a guy who can rip off a long run at any time, has tremendous straight line speed, is an explosive runner, is a good pass catcher. Another running back that I think can have standalone value without an injury. I think he can have standalone value from week 1. From the jump, he can be a serviceable RB2. And if Tony Pollard should get hurt, or if he struggles like he did last year, we could see Tyjae Spears take on an even bigger role. And this guy has the kind of explosive ability that gives him the upside to truly be a late round league winning running back. Now, someone I consider more of a true handcuff, but definitely warrants being drafted in pretty much every league, is Blake Corum of the Los Angeles Rams. I still believe this is Kyren Williams' backfield, and I don't believe that Kyren Williams is going to struggle so badly that Sean McVay is going to turn to Blake Corum. But what I do think is a definite possibility is that we see Kyren Williams miss games again. Remember, he missed games last year. He's not the biggest guy. He's not really built to be a workhorse running back, but Sean McVay wants him to be a workhorse running back because Sean McVay wants a workhorse running back. We have never seen Sean McVay use any kind of a committee or any kind of a split backfield, no matter who it was. Darrell Henderson, Sony Michel, Cam Akers coming off of Achilles, Kyren Williams last year. He wants a workhorse running back. So if something should happen to Kyren Williams, Blake Corum is definitely the next man up. Now, he's not the most explosive running back, but he's the kind of guy, he's a grinder. He's the kind of guy that could live off the kind of volume that he could get in this Rams backfield. And I think he's a very underrated pass catcher. Watching him in Michigan, you see a guy that has good hands and he also understands where to be on the field, how to get open. So I think he could be a weapon in the passing game if he does take over this lead job. So while I don't expect Kyren Williams to lose his job, and I don't expect Blake Corum to have a lot of value while Kyren Williams is healthy, if Kyren Williams misses time, Blake Corum is absolutely set up to smash in fantasy football in this Rams offense as a workhorse running back. Now, another running back from last year's draft class, Zach Charbonnet, who we were shocked was drafted by the Seattle Seahawks in the second round. We thought he would have a big impact on Kenneth Walker, and he really didn't. I mean, yes, he was the pass-catching back mostly, which gave him a little bit of value, and we did see in a couple starts there where Kenneth Walker was out what he was capable of, but we never really got to see him eat into Kenneth Walker's workload. Will that happen this year? I don't know. I think it's a possibility. Remember, it's a whole new coaching staff here. We don't know how this is going to shake out. But at the very minimum, he gives you that pass catching. So in your PPR leagues, he's at least serviceable if you need like a bye week fill in or you're hurting at injury. And if Kenneth Walker misses time, Zach Charbonnet absolutely can be an every down running back. He's got the size to be a between the tackles runner. He's got the speed to hit big plays. And again, I talked about it. He's got that pass catching and he's a good pass blocker. And like I said, there is a chance this new staff may want to use more of a split here. Maybe they don't want to give one guy all the run like they do with Kenneth Walker, like what Pete Carroll did in the past. And that could give Zach Charbonnet standalone value even if Kenneth Walker is healthy. But even if that doesn't happen, Zach Charbonnet is one of the highest upside handcuff running backs you can draft because this guy absolutely could be a number one running back in a lot of offenses in the NFL. He just happens to be in one with another very good running back in Kenneth Walker. But if Kenneth Walker is out of the picture, Zach Charbonnet could take off. Now, running back I really liked last year that I thought could really carve out a role was Kendre Miller. I loved his profile. Unfortunately, he just never got going last year. Remember, he was coming off that MCL injury he suffered in the college football playoffs, kind of re-aggravated it in training camp, missed the early start of the season, and then every time he came back, it seemed like he got hurt, re-aggravated some injury. But now he's fully healthy going into 2024, and I do think we see more Kendre Miller this year. If you go back to Week 18 last year when he actually was a starting running back, he was very good. In fact, you look at his numbers versus Alvin Kamara's, much more efficient than Alvin Kamara. Now, he's not the pass catcher that Alvin Kamara is, so I think Alvin Kamara, if he's still on the Saints this year, will be at least the pass catching back and probably still getting some of the early down run. But it wouldn't surprise me if we see more of what we saw back in the day with Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram, with Kendre Miller in that Mark Ingram role. Also, we can't overlook the fact Alvin Kamara is looking for an extension. He left minicamp early. His agent said it's contract related. We'll see if it gets worked out. Maybe he holds out. Maybe they cut him. Maybe they trade him. Who knows? But even if Kamara is there, I do think Kendre Miller gets more of a role this year. Alvin Kamara's efficiency the last few years has been horrible, one of the worst in the NFL. Yes, he's still decent, I guess, in the receiving game, but in the running game, between the tackles, he's been a liability. I think we can see Kendre Miller get that opportunity to handle more of the early down work, the between the tackles work. And again, if Alvin Kamara gets hurt or is just completely out of the picture, we could see Kendre Miller be an every down running back for the New Orleans Saints. Not the best offense, of course, but hey, for a late round running back that has the potential to be an every down guy, you gotta have him. Next on my list is Ty Chandler. We saw glimpses of him last year behind Alexander Mattison, or when Alexander Mattison was out. He showed flashes of what he can do. I don't think Ty Chandler is ever going to be the most exciting, most explosive, most efficient running back out there, but he's in an offense that, again, doesn't really like to use a committee here. Kevin O'Connell would rather just have one guy if possible, and right now it looks like that one guy is going to be Aaron Jones, but you got to remember, Aaron Jones is 30 years old. Aaron Jones has missed games every year like the last 3 years of his career. There's no guarantee Aaron Jones stays healthy all year, and if he's out, it's probably going to be Ty Chandler as the next man up. Now, I will say this is not one of my favorite offenses to have a running back in. We know it's going to be an extremely pass-heavy offense. Kevin O'Connell wants to throw the ball a ton. It's going to be one of the pass-heaviest offenses in the NFL, but still, if you can draft a running back with one of your last picks who has the potential to be an every down running back and get 15-ish carries and catch a handful of passes, that is extremely valuable in fantasy football. So don't overlook Ty Chandler just because they signed Aaron Jones. And don't overlook Tyler Algier just because we all love Bijan Robinson, because Tyler Algier is also one of the best handcuffs you can have in fantasy football. Now, let's be real. Tyler Algier is a plotter. That's it. He is absolutely the definition of a plotter. But we saw it a couple years ago when he started taking over that backfield as a rookie. Volume matters in fantasy. And that was back with Arthur Smith in this terrible Falcons offense. Imagine this year with Kirk Cousins, a new coaching staff, maybe a real NFL offense. Look, nobody, especially me, wants anything to happen to Bijan Robinson. But hey, this is football. Injuries happen to everybody. And if it happens to Bijan, which we pray it doesn't, Tyler Algier is going to absolutely be the workhorse running back. There's nobody else here to even worry about. You don't have to worry about Cordell Patterson vulturing goal line work anymore. Now, Tyler Algier, not going to be the most explosive guy, as I said. He's not a guy you're going to count on to rip off long runs. But volume alone in what should be a better offense, which should give him touchdown opportunities, could make him similar to what we saw at the end of 2022 when he helped teams win fantasy championships. So we're all hoping Bijan Robinson stays healthy for a full 17. But if he happens to miss time, Tyler Algier is going to be a huge priority pickup. So you might as well draft him and not worry about it. Let's get back to another Los Angeles rookie running back, this time with the Chargers, and it's Kimani Vidal. Now, we've talked up Gus Edwards all offseason. We love Gus Edwards. We think he can have double-digit touchdowns this year, 800 to 1,000 rushing yards. And again, he's being drafted relatively late. You would take that all day. But don't sleep on rookie Kimani Vidal, who's pretty much being forgotten in drafts. I think he's going to at least have a role as the pass-catching back because we know Gus Edwards does not catch passes. Somebody's going to have to be that guy. I think it's going to be Vidal. That at least gives him some standalone value in your PPR leagues. But if Gus Edwards goes down and misses time, I wouldn't be surprised if Vidal just takes over the backfield because who's behind him? J.K. Dobbins. And I know somebody's going to say, J.K. Dobbins, oh my gosh, he's so much better than Vidal. Maybe Dobbins would have been better than Vidal if he A, never blew up his knee and had that devastating ACL injury, and then B, didn't tear his Achilles last year. I really don't think J.K. Dobbins is going to be effective at all this year. Vidal is the guy I am targeting behind Gus Edwards, and you want a piece of this offense because unlike the Brandon Staley offense, this is going to be one of the run-heaviest offenses in the NFL. Jim Harbaugh, Greg Roman, they beefed up the O-line. They ignored wide receiver for the most part. They're going to run the football. So grab Vidal late if you can. As I said, I think he'll at least have some standalone value as a pass-catching back, but if Gus Edwards goes down, he's going to have a ton of value. And now I know Antonio Gibson has mostly been bad throughout his career. He had some nice years, rookie year, second year with Washington, but he's kind of been bad since. But I still think he's a guy you got to take shots on late in your draft because, yes, the Patriots did just give Ramondre Stevenson a nice extension, showing their confidence in Ramondre Stevenson as the lead back. But who's behind him? It's, of course, Antonio Gibson. Then it's Kevin Harris, JaMychal Hasty. These guys aren't really going to touch the football. Antonio Gibson, another guy that could have some standalone value in the passing game. I don't think he's going to be the pass catching back, so to speak, because Ramondre is also a very good pass catcher, and they just paid him a decent amount of money to be their number one running back. But Gibson will catch some passes, and we know if Ramondre goes down, Gibson can be that guy. We've seen him be a 3-down running back in Washington. He can handle it, and I think that's why the Patriots brought him in. I think they looked at him and said, hey, he's kind of like Ramondre Stevenson. He can be that 3-down, do-it-all running back, so if Ramondre goes down, our offense shouldn't lose too much of a beat. Now, I don't think he's necessarily as good as Ramondre Stevenson, but that's okay. When you're talking about a running back, you're getting with your last pick who can be a 3-down guy. Now, again, this New England offense, not going to be one of the most exciting offenses because it's either going to be Jacoby Brissett or rookie Drake May. Tons of checkdowns coming out of this offense, so whether it's Ramondre or Antonio Gibson, I think either of these guys are going to catch a ton of passes. Obviously, I've talked about Ramondre a ton. I love him in fantasy this year, but if he goes down or misses time, Antonio Gibson, next man up, and I think he'll have very similar production to Ramondre. Now, one of the highest end handcuffs of the last couple of years has been Elijah Mitchell of the 49ers, but he's kind of been forgotten this year, and I think that's because they drafted Isaac Guerendo, who was ran that blazing 40 time. But here's the thing about Guerendo. I'll be honest, I didn't watch any Guerendo tape before the combine, but after he had that impressive combine, I was like, well, let me go back and watch this guy. And the first thing I noticed watching him was, where is that speed? It does not show up on tape. He doesn't hit that top speed until he's well down the field, like 20, 30 yards down the field, which is great when you're running a 40 time. It's not great when you got to explode through the hole. He did not show that acceleration, that burst on film at all. And also what's concerning here is he wasn't even the lead back on his own team last year. I still think Elijah Mitchell is a direct handcuff to Christian McCaffrey. Now, I know what the knock on Elijah Mitchell is. Well, he always gets hurt. So even if Christian McCaffrey gets hurt, Elijah Mitchell will probably get hurt anyways and it won't matter. Okay, that's fair. You're not wrong. But at the same time, you want this guy for as many games as he plays. We've seen when he's been in there by himself, whether they're resting Christian McCaffrey or whether Christian McCaffrey is banged up, he has incredible upside. This is an offense you want the running back in. I still think Elijah Mitchell is the number 2 behind Christian McCaffrey, so he's the 49er handcuff I'm taking shots on. And then I can't believe I'm going to take shots on Clyde Edwards-Helaire this year, but I think I got to take shots on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Now, I've talked up Isaiah Pacheco a ton. I think Isaiah Pacheco can legit be a league-winning running back this year. But Pacheco, not the biggest dude. He's also a running back. Like, we know these guys can miss time. And if he does, it's going to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire because who are the running backs behind him? Deneric Prince and Keontae Ingram. Jerick McKinnon is gone. We know the Chiefs trust Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He knows the system. He knows the offense. He has the trust of Andy Reid, the trust of Patrick Mahomes. If Isaiah Pacheco goes down, Edwards-Helaire will be the next man up. Now, I don't expect him to have any standalone value as long as Pacheco is healthy. Yes, he'll have some random game where he catches a touchdown or gets a touchdown or whatever, but you're not going to want to trust that in your fantasy lineup. But if Pacheco misses time, Edwards-Helaire is absolutely going to be the starting running back, the number 1 running back for the Chiefs. And we're going to see this Chiefs offense look more like the offense we expected, one of the top scoring offenses in the NFL. So as much as it pains me, I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a running back handcuff you've got to try to have on your fantasy team. I think you've also got to try to have Dameon Pierce on your fantasy team. Now, he was horrible last year. So bad, in fact, that Devin Singletary took over that job and actually looked pretty good. But the reason why I still think you got to take shots on Dameon Pierce late, have him on your bench, is because it's him and Joe Mixon. That is pretty much it here. Devin Singletary now with the Giants. So yes, Joe Mixon will be the starter. I do like Joe Mixon. But look, Joe Mixon getting up there in age, has a lot of wear and tear. If Joe Mixon misses time, they're pretty much going to have to use Dameon Pierce because he's the only guy they really have. And we know this offense is going to be great. It was great last year. It's probably going to be even better this year, adding Stephon Diggs to the mix. This is going to be one of the top offenses in the NFL. You're going to want the running back in this offense. So again, kind of like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I don't feel good drafting Dameon Pierce. He's not going to have standalone value as long as Joe Mixon is healthy. But if he's asked to take over that lead role due to injury or whatever reason, he then will have a ton of value. You'll be happy he's on your team. And I feel kind of the same way about Tank Bigsby. We didn't really see him last year as a rookie do anything we hoped he would actually do. Despite all the talk about Doug Peterson saying, hey, we're going to get him touches, we're going to do all this, it just never happened. It was mostly Tank Bigsby's fault because A, he was kind of bad, and B, he kept fumbling the football. But we're hearing again Doug Peterson saying we got to get Tank Bigsby the ball more. We got to lighten the load on Travis Etienne. Will that actually happen or not? We'll see. But I think even if it doesn't, Tank Bigsby is still a handcuff you have to draft because he is definitely the next man up. He's going to get the next shot if Travis Etienne goes down. Liked him as a prospect. I didn't think he was like incredible as a prospect, but I liked him as a prospect. And look, kind of like Zamir White last year, right? A guy that as a rookie never really got to touch the ball because he was behind Josh Jacobs. Then in year 2, still never really got to touch the ball. Then Josh Jacobs missed the end of last year. And what did we see? Zamir White looked pretty good, took over that backfield, helped teams win fantasy championships. Why couldn't the same path happen for Tank Bigsby this year if Travis Etienne happens to miss time? He's got the potential, the ability to be a 3-down back in the NFL if he can shore up those fumbling issues and get better in year 2. And why couldn't he? Another year in this offense, another year in the NFL. Don't be surprised if Tank Bigsby is this year's Zamir White. And now let's get really deep and let's go out to Baltimore with Justice Hill. Justice Hill is a guy I've been drafting with one of my last picks in a lot of my best ball drafts because he's the direct handcuff to Derrick Henry. And oh, by the way, Derrick Henry doesn't catch passes. Justice Hill can. He's a good pass catcher. So I think he'll at least have the pass catching role in this offense while Derrick Henry is healthy. Now I know Derrick Henry is a cyborg. I know he's inhuman. I know he can't get hurt. But I also know he's 30 years old, and I also know a couple years ago he missed half the season. Father Time is undefeated. It will eventually catch up with Derrick Henry. Maybe it won't be this year, but it's going to happen at some point. But if it is this year, and if he does miss time, I think Justice Hill is going to be the main guy because who else is really here? Already talked about Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins off with the Chargers. Keaton Mitchell coming off ACL, and John Harbaugh has already talked like he's not going to be ready for the start of the season. There really isn't anybody behind Justice Hill. Now, sure, if Derrick Henry goes down, maybe they go out in the free agent market and bring in some dusty veteran free agent. But Justice Hill has some juice. He has explosive ability. He's probably not going to be, a 20-plus touch guy, even if Derrick Henry gets hurt. But that's okay because he's basically free in your fantasy drafts. And if Derrick Henry goes down, he's going to be the top waiver wire ad. So if you're in a deeper league with a big benches, you might as well stash Justice Hill right from the start. Now let's go even deeper with Evan Hull of the Indianapolis Colts. Now I love Jonathan Taylor this year. I think Jonathan Taylor is in store for a huge bounce back season. But if Jonathan Taylor should go down, who is the next man up? Well, I think it's Evan Hull, who they drafted last year. Because the only other option is Trey Sermon, who has been awful so far in the NFL. Evan Hull was a running back I really liked as a sleeper last year. He's 209 pounds. He ran a 4.47 40. He had a 17% target share in college, so he's a good pass catcher. That ranked in the 97th percentile. He also ranked in the 85th percentile college dominator, which means he can handle the volume. He can handle that workhorse role. And we saw last year with Shane Steichen, he's not a guy that likes to use a committee. It was either Zach Moss or Jonathan Taylor. He doesn't like to mix and match. He doesn't like to rotate running backs. And again, the only other option here is Trey Sermon. So I certainly think Evan Hull has the upside to be a league-winning running back, a league-winning handcuff. If something should happen to Jonathan Taylor, I hope it doesn't. But again, it's fantasy, it's football. You got to be prepared. So again, if you're in a very deep league with very deep benches, go ahead and stash Evan Hull, because if Jonathan Taylor goes down, he's probably going to be a priority pickup. Those handcuff running backs could definitely help teams win